1. You walked outside this morning and the pool is green. Not slightly off, not a little cloudy green. The kind of green that makes you not want to go near it, let alone swim in it. And the worst part is you have people coming over this weekend. You have maybe 12 hours before this becomes an embarrassing problem. Most owners do one of two things at that moment. They call a pool service and hand over $150 to $300 for an emergency treatment. One, or they drive to the pool store, describe the problem to whoever is behind the counter, and walk out with $80 worth of products and instructions that amount to add this, wait, and hope. Neither of those responses clears a green pool in 12 hours. Both of them cost far more than the actual solution, and the actual solution is sitting in your grocery store and hardware store right now for under $30. Here is what nobody at the pool store tells you when you walk in with a green pool problem. Green water has exactly one cause. Not a mysterious combination of factors, not bad luck, not aggressive local algae. One cause, a gap in your sanitizer that lasted long enough for algae cells that are always present in pool water to multiply to visible levels. Fix the sanitizer gap correctly and completely, and the water clears. Every time. The products that clear it are not specialty chemicals. They are the same compounds doing the same chemistry, whether you buy them at a pool store for $80 or a grocery store for $8. 190% of green pool treatments fail or take 3 to 5 days longer than necessary because the owner treats the algae instead of fixing the conditions that produced it. By the end of this video, you will have the complete 12-hour method, every product, every dose, every step in the correct sequence, and you will understand exactly why it works so you can run it yourself without guessing, why your pool turned green, and why more chlorine alone will not fix it. Before the method, you need to understand the one mistake that makes green pool treatments take 3 days instead of 12 hours. 1. Because this mistake is what the pool store solution almost always sets you up to make. The mistake is adding chlorine to water with the wrong pH. Here is the mechanism. Chlorine does not work in a vacuum. At pH 7.4 to 7.6, chlorine is aggressive, fast-acting, and fully effective against algae cells. At pH 8.0, that same chlorine loses roughly 75% of its killing power. It is in the water, it reads on your test strip, and it is barely touching the algae because the pH conditions have neutralized most of its effectiveness before it can do its job. Now here is the cruel timing of a green pool. 1. By the time a pool turns visibly green, pH has almost certainly climbed. Algae growth itself pushes pH up through photosynthesis. Warm summer water pushes pH up. The aeration from any pump and filter system running through the night pushes pH up. A pool that has been neglected long enough to go green has almost certainly been sitting above pH 7.8 for days. You add a bag of shock. The shock goes into water where it immediately loses most of its effectiveness. You add more shock. Same result. 3 days later, the water is lighter green instead of clear, and you have spent $60 in shock that did a fraction of what it should have. The 12-hour method works because it fixes pH before a single ounce of chlorine goes in. That one change, correcting in sequence instead of dumping chlorine into unbalanced water, is the difference between a 12-hour result and a 3-day battle. What you need, the complete shopping list. Everything on this list is available at a grocery store, hardware store, or big box store. Nothing requires a pool store visit except the last item, and that one you buy in bulk so you never run short. Item 1, plain unscented household bleach, 6% to 8.25% sodium hypochlorite. This is your primary chlorine source for the treatment. A gallon runs $3 to $5. You will need 2 to 4 gallons depending on your pool size and how green the water is. The label must say sodium hypochlorite as the only active ingredient. No splash guard formula, no scents, no additives. Plain item 2, muriatic acid from the hardware store. A gallon runs $10. 1. This is for pH correction before the treatment starts. 1 gallon handles multiple corrections across a full season. Wear eye protection and gloves. Added diluted in a bucket of pool water, never straight from the jug. Item 3, baking soda from the grocery store if your alkalinity is low. A standard 1-pound box costs about $1. This is your alkalinity increaser. The pool store sells the same compound as Alkalinity Up for $15 to $20 a tub. Item 4. calcium hypochlorite granular shock, 68% available chlorine from the pool store bought in bulk. This is the one product on the list that is genuinely worth buying from the pool supply section because the concentration makes it the fastest option for pushing chlorine to the levels needed for a proper green pool treatment. A 25-pound bucket bought in bulk costs significantly less per pound than individual bags. If you do not have Cal Hypo on hand, bleach handles the entire treatment. It simply requires more volume and more frequent additions to maintain the elevated chlorine level. Item 5, a drop test kit, not strips. One, for a green pool treatment, you need accurate numbers, and strips are not accurate enough for this job. The Taylor K2006 is the industry standard. If you do not own one, buy one. A $15 kit that gives you accurate readings is the most cost-effective pool purchase you will ever make. That is the entire shopping list total cost for a first-time green pool treatment using this method. $25 to $300, the 12-hour method. Every step in exact sequence. The sequence is not flexible. One, every step exists for a reason, and skipping or reordering them is why most green pool treatments take 3 days instead of 12 hours. Hour 0, test everything before you touch anything. Pull your drop test kit. Test free chlorine, pH, total alkalinity, and cyanuric acid. Write every number down. You cannot dose correctly without knowing where you are starting, and do not be surprised if your test kit struggles to read the chlorine accurately in a green pool, when a pool is severely green. Free chlorine is often at or near 0 because the algae bloom has consumed it entirely. 1. That 0 reading is confirmation that the sanitizer gap is the cause. Now you know what you are working with. Hour 0 to hour 1. Fix alkalinity first. Total alkalinity should be between 80 and 120 parts per million. If it is below 80, add baking soda now. For a 10,000-gallon pool, 1.5 pounds raises alkalinity by approximately 10 parts per million. Broadcast it across the surface with the pump running. Wait 1 hour before moving to pH correction. If alkalinity is in range, skip this step and move directly to pH. Why alkalinity before pH? 1. Because alkalinity is the buffer that holds pH stable. Correct pH before alkalinity is in range and pH drifts back within hours. You will be chasing it all day instead of running the treatment. This is the step most owners skip and the reason most treatments stall. Hour 1, correct pH to 7.2. Target pH for a green pool treatment is slightly lower than normal maintenance range. You want pH at 7.2 rather than the usual 7.4 to 7.6. At 7.2, chlorine works harder than it does even at 7.5. 1, for a pool sitting at pH 8.0. You need approximately 16 to 24 ounces of muriatic acid per 10,000 gallons to bring pH down to 7.2. Add it diluted in a bucket of pool water, pour it slowly into the deep end away from the skimmer with the pump running, and wait 1 hour before testing again. Add your calculated dose in 2 halves. Add half, run the pump for 30 minutes, retest, add the second half if needed. Muriatic acid at full dose in a green pool can overcorrect and drop pH below 7.0, which etches plaster and damages equipment. Slow and steady brings it to exactly 7.2 without overshooting. 1 hour, 1 to 2. Check cyanuric acid. Cyanuric acid should be between 30 and 50 parts per million. Below 30, and the chlorine you are about to add gets destroyed by UV before it can kill the algae. The treatment needs to hold elevated chlorine through daylight hours, and UV protection is essential for that. If CYA is below 30, add cyanuric acid granules through the skimmer with the pump running. It dissolves slowly. Add your calculated dose and allow 24 hours for it to fully register before adding more. If CYA is already in range, move to the next step. 1. If CYA is above 80, you are in chlorine lock territory, and the treatment will consume far more chlorine than it should because the stabilizer is interfering with effectiveness. In a severe case, this may require a partial dilution before running the treatment effectively. Drain 20 to 30% of the pool, refill with fresh water, retest CYA, then proceed. Hour 2, brush everything before the first chlorine addition. This step is skipped by most owners, and it is one of the most important steps in the entire method. Algae does not just float in the water. It clings to surfaces, walls, floor, steps behind the ladder, in corners and wall niches. Brushing breaks up algae colonies clinging to surfaces and forces the cells into the water column where your chlorine can reach them. Algae cells still attached to surfaces are partially protected from contact with the sanitizer. Brushed cells suspended in the water are completely exposed. Brush every surface, walls from waterline to floor, every step and ledge behind the ladder along the floor, every corner. 1. This takes 5 to 10 minutes for a typical residential pool, and it dramatically improves how quickly the chlorine works in the following hours. 2. Add your first chlorine dose at the correct level. This is where most green pool treatments are underdosed and why most of them take 3 days. The dose for a green pool treatment is not a standard shock dose. Standard shock raises chlorine to approximately 10 parts per million. 1A green pool requires breakpoint chlorination at a level determined by the CYA concentration, typically pushing free chlorine to 10 to 20 parts per million and holding it there, not just reaching it once and walking away. For a 10,000-gallon pool with CYA at 30 to 40 parts per million, your initial dose target is 15 to 20 parts per million of free chlorine. Using cal hypo at 68%, that requires approximately 1.5 to 2 pounds. Using 6% bleach, that requires approximately 2.5 to 3 gallons. 1. Add it with the pump running. Distribute it around the perimeter at dusk if timing allows, or in the early evening. The pump runs continuously from this point until the water is clear. Now, before we go further, if you want every dose calculated for your exact pool size, the complete grocery store method, and the full printable weekly routine that prevents this from ever happening again, I put it all together in a 39-page guide called the Pool Carder Playbook, From Green to Crystal Clear. Was $67, right now just $29.99. Link is below this video. Let's finish the method. 1 hours 2 through 12. Maintain the chlorine level. This is the step that makes it 12 hours instead of 3 days. This is the step that separates the owners who clear a green pool overnight from the ones still fighting it 4 days later. The chlorine level must be maintained at the treatment target throughout the entire process, not reached once and left to drop maintained. Algae consumes chlorine as it dies. A heavy bloom in a 15,000-gallon pool can consume several parts per million of chlorine per hour at the peak of the treatment. 1. If you add a large initial dose, walk away and check it 8 hours later to find chlorine at 0. The treatment stalled somewhere in the middle of the night, and the algae had hours to recover. The green pool is lighter in the morning but not clear, and you add another dose and wait another day. Test chlorine every 2 to 3 hours during the active treatment phase, especially in the first 6 hours. When it drops below the treatment target, add more bleach or cal hypo to bring it back up. Run the pump continuously. Do not turn it off to save electricity during a green pool treatment. 1. Circulation is what brings chlorine into contact with algae cells throughout the entire volume of water, not just near the returns. Brush the surfaces again at the 4-hour mark. Dead algae detaches from surfaces as the treatment progresses. Brushing it loose accelerates the clearing process by putting cells in contact with the chlorine. The morning test, how to know if it worked. The definitive test of a successful green pool treatment is not the color of the water at midnight. It is the free chlorine reading the following morning. 1A pool that successfully completed the treatment will show one of 2 things at dawn. If chlorine is holding at 2 to 4 parts per million in the morning, and the water has gone from green to cloudy blue or clear, the treatment worked. The algae is dead. The cloudiness is dead algae cells suspended in the water. Your filter will clear those within 24 to 48 hours of normal operation. If chlorine dropped back near 0 overnight, and the water is still green or only slightly lighter, the organic load was heavier than the initial dose handled, and the algae is not fully dead. 1. Add another full treatment dose at dusk and repeat the overnight pump cycle. 2 consecutive evenings of correct dosing clears even severe green pool situations. The filter is doing half the work. Do not let it fail during the treatment. Every dead algae cell that the chlorine kills has to go somewhere. It goes to your filter. During a green pool treatment, your filter is working harder than at any other point in the season. Dead algae cells accumulate rapidly in the filter media and pressure rises faster than normal. Check filter pressure every 4 to 6 hours during the treatment. 1 sand filter, backwash when pressure rises 8 to 10 pounds above normal. Cartridge filter, pull it and hose it down thoroughly. During a heavy treatment, you may need to clean the cartridge twice in 12 hours. A clogged filter during a green pool treatment is a treatment that stalls. The water clears chemically and then goes cloudy again because the dead cells the filter cannot process return to circulation. After the water clears and before you return to normal operation, do a full filter clean regardless of pressure. 1A green pool treatment puts more debris through your filter than several normal weeks of operation combined. What to do the day after, and how to make sure it never happens again. Once the water is clear and chlorine is holding at normal levels, the treatment is complete, but the conditions that produce the green pool are still present unless you address them directly. Test all 5 numbers: free chlorine, pH, total alkalinity, cyanuric acid, and calcium hardness. Return them all to target range in the correct order: alkalinity, then pH, then sanitizer. This is the chemistry that should have been in place before the bloom, and it is the chemistry that prevents the next one. Establish borates if you have not already. 30 to 50 parts per million of borates in the water creates the pH stability that makes the sanitizer gap algae depends on structurally harder to form. A pool that turned green once will turn green again. If the underlying chemistry instability is not addressed, borates address it permanently with a one-time setup. Start the daily 2-minute morning test. Free chlorine and pH every morning in July. Not every Saturday. One every morning. The sanitizer gap that produced the green pool you just spent 12 hours fixing opened over the course of several days while the chemistry drifted unchecked. A morning test catches every drift before it becomes a gap, and every gap before it becomes a bloom. The hidden reason most green pool treatments fail on the second day, and how to avoid it. Here is the situation that catches owners every single time. The treatment goes in on Tuesday evening. Wednesday morning, the water has gone from dark green to light green. Progress is visible. 1. The owner tests chlorine, sees it is low, adds another dose, and assumes the process is working on its own schedule. Wednesday evening, the water looks about the same as Wednesday morning. Thursday morning, it is marginally better. By Friday, it is a lighter shade of cloudy green, and the owner has now spent 3 days, 4 bags of shock, and $60 wondering why a method that was supposed to work in 12 hours is still not done on day 4. Here is what happened. The chlorine level was not maintained. It was reached once, and then allowed to drop while the algae, still partially alive in the walls and corners, consumed the available sanitizer and bought itself recovery time. Every hour that chlorine sits below the treatment target is an hour the algae is not dying at the rate it should be. In a severely green pool, that hour can cost you 4 to 6 hours of additional treatment time because algae recovery in warm water is fast. The cells that were weakened but not killed by a dropping chlorine level begin reproducing again before the next dose arrives. 1. The owners who clear a green pool in 12 hours are not adding more product than the owners who take 4 days. They are maintaining the product level continuously rather than dosing once and stepping away. The difference in product cost between those two approaches is minimal. The difference in time and frustration is the entire gap between a cleared pool on Wednesday morning and a pool you are still fighting on Saturday when the guests arrive. Set a timer on your phone for every 2 hours during the active treatment phase. Test chlorine when it goes off. 1. If chlorine has dropped below your treatment target, add enough bleach or cal hypo to bring it back up. This is not a large addition at each interval. It is a maintenance dose. 1 to 2 cups of bleach for a 10,000-gallon pool that has dropped 1 to 2 parts per million from the treatment target. Small, frequent, consistent. That pattern of small, frequent additions maintaining an elevated level is what kills a green pool in 12 hours. One large addition that drops unchecked overnight is what turns 12 hours into 4 days. 1. The sunlight problem nobody mentions, and why the timing of your first dose matters more than the size of it. Pool owners are told to shock their green pool. They are almost never told when. And the timing of the first chlorine addition in a green pool treatment is one of the most overlooked variables in the entire process. Here is the mechanism. Unstabilized chlorine, or chlorine in water where cyanuric acid is low, is destroyed by UV at a rate that varies from roughly 50% to 90% loss in a matter of hours under direct summer sun. 1A pool sitting at 30 parts per million of CYA loses chlorine to UV significantly faster than a pool at 50 parts per million. A pool at 0 CYA on a July afternoon can lose the majority of a large chlorine dose before it finishes working through the water. If you add your treatment dose at 2 in the afternoon on a clear July day with CYA at the low end of range, the sun is taking a significant share of it before it contacts algae cells throughout the full pool volume. You paid for a full treatment and got a partial one. The water lightens slightly, you add more. 1. The sun takes some of that too. The pool grinds toward clear over several days, while you keep feeding it chlorine that the sun keeps burning off. The correct timing for the first treatment dose is dusk or after dark, not midday, not early afternoon. After the sun is off the water, the chlorine goes in, the pump runs through the night. The entire treatment dose works through the full 8 to 10 hour overnight window without UV degradation, and the water wakes up the following morning dramatically clearer than it was when the dose went in. 1. That overnight undisturbed treatment window is worth more than doubling your dose at midday. Timing costs nothing. An extra gallon of bleach costs $4. The timing is always the better investment. If you absolutely cannot wait until dusk and the situation requires immediate action, add the dose anyway and accept that you will need a follow-up dose at dusk. But the dusk dose is the one that does most of the work. Plan around it. Why the pool turns cloudy white or gray after the green clears, and why that is exactly what you want to see. 1. This confuses a significant number of pool owners, and it is worth addressing directly because the confusion leads to unnecessary additional treatments and wasted product. When a green pool treatment works correctly, the water does not go from green to clear in a single visible step. It goes from green to cloudy blue, white, or gray. This intermediate stage, which typically appears 6 to 10 hours into a correctly dosed treatment, is not a sign that something went wrong. It is the most visible sign that everything went right. Here is what is actually happening. The chlorine has killed the algae. 1. The cells that were alive and giving the water its green color are now dead. Dead algae cells are white or gray in color, and they are suspended throughout the water in large quantities after a heavy bloom. The green is gone because the living algae is gone. The cloudiness is the dead material that your filter has not yet had time to remove from the water. The water looks gray or milky because it is full of dead algae, not because living algae is still present. 1. The owner who sees gray water at the 8-hour mark and concludes the treatment is not working, adds more product, stresses about the timeline, and sometimes takes actions that actually slow the clearing process. The owner who knows what gray water means at the 8-hour mark, checks that chlorine is holding at 2 to 4 parts per million, confirms the filter is running and at normal pressure, and walks away satisfied. The filter clears the dead material within 24 to 48 hours of normal operation. Clean the filter once or twice during that window to keep it running efficiently. 1. The water clears itself. The green to gray transition is the milestone you are looking for. When you see gray or cloudy blue water where there was green water, the hard part is done. The filter does the rest. The cost comparison that makes the pool store solution impossible to justify pool store emergency green pool treatment, $80 to $150 in specialty products plus $150 to $300 in service call fees for a professional treatment. Total, $230 to $450 time to clear. 2 to 4 days using their standard approach. 1. The Pool Carter 12-hour method. $25 to $35 in bleach, muriatic acid, and baking soda sourced from the grocery store and hardware store, plus Cal Hypo from the pool store if not already on hand. Total first-time cost, $35 to $50. Subsequent green pool treatments once you have the supplies on hand, $10 to $15. Time to clear, 12 hours when the method is followed correctly and the chlorine level is maintained. Same result, different knowledge. The knowledge costs nothing. This video is free. 1. The playbook is $29.99, and it pays for itself the first time you use the grocery store method instead of the pool store cart. The green pool is not a mystery. It is a chemistry problem with a chemistry solution that costs less than a pizza and takes less time than most owners spend at the pool store trying to solve it. The owners who clear their pool in 12 hours are not lucky. They are not chemistry experts. They know the sequence, they know the dose, and they maintain the chlorine level through the night instead of adding it once and hoping. 1. If this worked for you, or if you have been fighting a green pool the slow way and this is the first time someone explained why, drop it in the comments. How green was it and how long did it take? Help the next owner skip the 3-day battle. Every video on this channel works the same way. Real numbers, no sponsors, no pool store upsell. If that is useful to you, subscribe. This channel reads the water, not the marketing.